they put my locker next to Soroka and Max Fried. I got done throwing early before anybody came in. Max came in and was like, hey man, I go, hey Max, like, you got to keep doing what you're doing. Whatever you're doing, you just keep doing that thing in the morning till you go to bed at night. And he goes, you know my name? I was like, dude, you're like 7-0 at this point, like 9-1 or some absurd like that. And obviously he's done his thing since. But I was just like, are these guys just not even believing what they're doing? I was like, somebody's got to say something to like get these guys to believe. Soroka, same thing. He was kind of in the Rookie of the Year candidacy. Nobody made them believe, even with a Josh Donaldson or a Freddie Freeman. But those guys are also position players. So I feel like, and I'm not tooting my own horn. It was just like I was there in the moment with Soroka and then Max Fried to say, hey guys, like, what you're doing is legit. Like, this is how I started. This is how anybody starts. Doesn't matter if you're a pitcher, a hitter, a coach. You start in the same way with no name, and then you progressively build. And I think by the end of the year, it was a cohesive unit, and it was one of my most fun times. And I was only there for half a year, so it's like Kel and I talk about this a lot. When I see somebody Max or Soroka now with Chicago, I'm like, I'm still rooting for these guys. These guys are salt of the earth dudes. And they didn't even know how good they were.
That's really cool.
Yeah, you're like, listen, this is how it starts out. You're gonna be young, no one knows you. Then you grow a beard, you get famous as fuck.
I was like, you guys are already way more advanced because you both were first rounders. You both had way more money. I had to just work my butt off for pretty much like 5 years, couple minor league seasons, and then it was like, hey, you're good, but then you're not good. You're good, and then you're not good.
Uh-oh, Kelly got the center stage.
It reminds me of your rehearsal dinner.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
How so? What was
Dallas is my emotional support husband because I'm actually a really shy person.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
So I had to talk at your wedding, and I was like, I can't do it. You gotta come with me.
She did. I was just like, what in
He's
the
like,
world
are
is
you
going on
sick?
right now?
I was like hyperventilating.
Were you really?
Yeah.
So how is it on set?
Kelly.
Like when you...
On
No,
set,
she
it's
couldn't.
just-
She couldn't breathe.
I couldn't breathe.
I've been there as well, but I'm just saying, you when I've watched you on television, there isn't any inkling that you are even nervous, let alone dealing whatever.
When it's me and the camera or me and one-on-one, it's fine. And this group is fine. But to talk in front of people, wow, that's a lot.
You still nailed it, though.
Oh my God, it's tears.
That's so cool.
He's wiping them.
I did. I was trying not to touch the makeup, though. It was just like,
So here, once again, I brought my emotional support husband.
Yes, and Case, so my wife, Case, and Kelly are super tight from over the years, working in TV, just reaching out for support and advice, and grew a relationship together over social media and all that type of stuff. And Dallas would he was my worst nightmare because this dude, I'm seeing him just back foot me with sinkers all day long. And I'm like, you know what you're doing, I know what you're doing, and I can't not hit a ground ball to second base right now. Kelly, help me, what do I do? So we've gotten to connect off the field the last couple years, and that's been something fun. And you guys have gotten to share my wedding with me. Kelly was in the wedding, like she just said. So we've gotten to grow throughout the years, and it's crazy because you guys were just talking about your Tampa days, and when you're covering a team and you're traveling and you're doing all that type of stuff, it becomes a family. And Blake Snell was at my wedding as well, who's about to have a little boy, and he talks to you about you like you're his older sister. So there's got to be a unique bond that you have with players because you've spent so much time with them throughout the years.
And I feel like I didn't grow up with brothers, only sisters. So I get to a setting like MLB Network, and these guys, it becomes a brother to me, much older brothers usually. But
Cliff Floyd, we talk about him all the time.
Oh my gosh, I was just remembering the other day, I was live with Sean Casey, who's one of my favorites, absolutely hilarious human. And he's like, live TV, do you want to touch my shin? I'm like, do I want to touch your shin? Are you serious right now? I'm like, do I touch his shin? Do I not? And he had this just divot. He's like, you gotta feel this thing. Like I felt so many balls off my shin. Like there's an actual divot in there. So we kind of take those moments off camera, and I've kicked it with them and Dallas as well. And we just laugh. And it's just such a joy to get to know these actual legends on the field. I mean, I'll be doing my makeup and John Smoltz comes in, Bob Costas comes in, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I can't even act normal around these dudes, right? But then they ask about Dallas, they ask how we're doing, and it feels like family.
It does, and that's what's so unique is in baseball, we're 8-9 months out of the year, we're in spring training, and then postseason if you make it. So, the Kellys and the Lauren Shahadis and Alana Rizzo, these are people we're always seeing. And, you're around these people so much, and you start talking about family, you start talking about life outside of the game, and it's so funny. And me and you are in a similar situation when your significant other is on TV and on TV in the sports world as well, and that's something that, it's so cool because the brotherhood, you start to kind of stand up and protect. You get some of these a young 21-year-old Haas, and I'm watching Quick Pitch, or someone's watching Nessa, and they're like, damn, who's that on the TV?
Yeah.
And you're like, hey, bro.
Shut your mouth, Kelly.
Hey. Yeah.
No way.
You Silver Leaf? I have, because Kelly got it without a title. All right? Hey. But it is crazy because we compete off the field, but at the same time, off the field, there is that family-like feeling. And that's got to be something cool over the years. I mean, now you being a veteran, going from team to team, and that's just kind of like a social group that we've built throughout the years.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've enjoyed most about actually switching a couple teams is that, to me, football and basketball do the best jobs of competing at an early age, and they all come up together, AAU ball or whatever. Football is always you're competing against each other, but at the same time, somehow there's this brotherhood off the field. I think baseball, you're so wrapped up and so consumed time-wise because of how long the season is, that usually when the season ends, you just want to get away. So there's no hanging out with guys on a team or this or that. But now being on a couple different teams, last year I saw a few guys that I'd played against or played with, and it's just it is a brotherhood, and they come over, say hi or this or that, and say what's up. And that's, to me, that's the coolest, because you never know if you're leaving a lasting imprint, good or bad, with an individual or former teammate or whatever. But I think baseball in general is doing a better job of kind of connecting that brotherhood, because like you said.
And one of the coolest things too was there was one night, Case had an apartment in New York, and she was throwing a little after party or a party at her house, and it was the night that Dallas was getting presented as Cy Young. And Verlander got to present you the Cy Young that night, because I remember seeing you guys after, and he was in the tuxedo and all that. They didn't let me in that party, but Cy Young, baby, you can't buy a ticket to that one. You got to earn your way to that one. But just to hear you say, yeah, JV just presented it to me. And I remember when, you were a big reason why he got traded over there in Houston, because the trade deadline went, and then you had the balls to stick up for your team and be like, yo, we need to get somebody, man. Yeah, I'm the ace of this staff, but we need some help. And they went out and got Verlander, and then the next thing you know, you guys are teammates. And I mean, you just had to have watched and learned so much from them, because I mean, you guys are both in that elite class of being Cy Youngs.
Yeah, well, we don't usually dress up a lot in the off season, but I got to throw a tux on, so it was really fun.
I don't know if I believe that. I don't know. You guys are always looking clean.
I felt like I had a green tux, and I was looking good at the time. And but yeah, I mean, that moment, I can remember like it was yesterday. It was both Lance McCullers and I started out really hot, and we had all this kind of pressure on us to win in Houston at that moment. Like, our window was to win, and I happened to win April Pitcher of the Month. Lance then wins Pitcher of the Month in May. So we back-to-back winners, and it was like all this hype of, Lance is taking his next step and being kind of a superstar that was drafted with Carlos pretty much in the round one. And then I get hurt, Lance gets hurt, so it's all like full panic mode. Somehow we kept winning. But we hit a little skid in June, and Jim Crane, our majority owner, came up and was kind of talking about a few guys that they were wanting to get. Nothing happened at the deadline. And back at the time, they still had the
August
waiver thing.
The waiver.
Yeah,
It was so weird.
Still not sure
If you
exactly
ask the
what
young
it
guys
is.
about the waiver deadline, they have no earthly idea. It's like throwing out something from outer space.
Yeah.
And so the waiver deadline hit. We were second to last. I think the Dodgers had the best record, and that's how that went. But JV fell through, and Jim called me and was like, "Dude, I have to have you call Justin because he's panicking. He's panicking over there. Like, he doesn't want to leave Detroit." I was like, "Dude, what am I gonna say?" I was just like, "All right, F it, I'll call him." And sure as crap, Kate picked up, and she's like, "Hey, dude, this guy's freaking out." I was like, "Hey, just put him on the phone for a second." I was like, "Hey, the only thing that you're missing in this resume already of pretty much Hall of Fame was a World Series title." And I said, "Hey, we got a really good shot. I've been in the playoffs once, missed the playoffs last year." I said, "I don't want to miss this again." And I said, "Hey, I know you're panicked. I know you're kind of freaking out about this midnight deadline." And I said, "That's all I want to say." I was like, I admire you from afar. I said, "Come over here. You look good in orange and blue," and that's it. And hung up the phone. And I don't know, it was like 11:58 to the midnight. And then I'm pretty sure he called his agent and pushed it through. So
That's so sick.
that was cool.
That is
was
a great
cool. And
story.
he had been dealing with some injuries too, and was kind of getting in form. So literally, when he came over, 5 starts I think for us, it was like a point something ERA.
Yeah, it was crazy.
It was
Wouldn't give it
incredible.
many runs.
And then it ran through the playoffs too. So it's just like, oh my gosh, this is one of the best deals that I think they could ever have made.
Just hearing that theme, Kelly was talking about relationships, you talking about relationships in a brotherhood. We've been talking a lot about camaraderie and leadership and family amongst themselves. You think about the Kobes, he starts the career, focus on himself, and then as he gets later in his career, focus on the team. Michael Jordan. Do you think there's something to that? The older you get, the more experience you get, the more you start focusing on the team rather than self?
The values change. Like what you hold valuable to yourself changes as you get older. You see the value of building up other people. You see what a team environment go in the same direction can do, as opposed to a couple of groups butting heads the whole time. So I just think as you get older, you know that what it takes to try to guide guys the right way.
I've always wondered that as a journalist, and so many answers are given to us. Oh, it's about the team, only the team, not about me, 1,000 strikeout game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But is it really? That's always kind of crossed my mind. Like, obviously you're worried about yourselves
Great
as well.
question.
Yeah, and that's something we've tried to kind of dig deeper into, is like, even as a minor league guy, it's like, you want to win, you want to be a good team guy. But if my AA team wins 100 games and the whole team's going to AAA and I'm not, hell yeah, I'm bitter about that. You know what I mean? Like, I want to be on that bus ride too, going with you guys. But for me, it's almost like the brotherhood we're talking about. As you get older, it kind of expands, because some of these younger guys you play with, you end up going from team to team, and you still find yourself reaching out to them all the time and trying to connect with these guys and trying to be, that older brother or that teammate like you were, how it was whatever year you played together. And, speaking of the mentors, rumor has it if Verlander didn't present you the award, they said the impact that Pete made on you in 2014, that he might have been that guy putting on a tux with you, presenting that side.
Those 3 weeks of spring where I didn't get released, it was awesome.
I couldn't wait. I couldn't wait to share this story.
I feel like I know you from somewhere.
Face is familiar, a little bit more hair, but your face is way more familiar.
No, it was funny because I grew up the biggest Braves fan, and Pete had some really good years with the Braves. So
wait, how old are you, bro?
Yeah, I'm old. Yeah.
Well, I was still watching the Braves back when,
Oh my God.
I mean, Kershaw and I are the same age, and he was already in the big leagues when I was still in college. And it's like, wow, dude, what's life?
Am I doing this right?
What is life right now, dude? But yeah, I remember just meeting Pete, and I was like, man, this is pretty dang cool. And this is like the impact. It's like we talked, we had conversations, and we were young, we were all young. That was kind of like when we started turning the corner. We didn't fully turn the corner that year, but it was like I at least listened to Pete. He could have thrown me to the wolves, and I would have gone in that playpen.
I would have if it had been a couple of years earlier, because in all seriousness, that's how the game was. Like I had to, that was part of my, when I went to a new team, that was the first time that I was kind of like, well, hold on. I can't just come into this clubhouse and be a complete dick to people, because they're going to say, who the fuck is this guy? I had to try to find relationships and find guys that I could talk to use some of the experience that I had. It may not have been much. I was only there for 6 weeks or whatever it was, but we talked a lot. And I think you were battling for the 5th spot that year. Mm-hmm. And I was watching you pitch, and I was like, man, this guy's going to be way better than the 5th starter for this team. And then next year you do what you did, and then continue to roll, man. It was cool.
We did play. It was a big FIFA online. And I was like, hey, I'm pretty good at FIFA. We had some good matches.
That's awesome.
He kicked my ass. I didn't know that there was FIFA guys like him.
One of the funniest things about this is that I didn't know you could speed the actual game speed up. So we were like in hyper mode. Yeah. All our players are running like this. I'm not kidding you.
Sounds about right.
It was like normal. You go, hey, let's change this. Hey, normal game speed, and then you click it all the way to the right, and I go, I've never done this before. And it was like Leo Messi, just hyperspeed, Ronaldo, hyperspeed, the other one. I'm like,
so I see life, dude. It's just like ones and zeros all over the place. Yes. I'm just matrixing around this place.
Yes. That is so funny.
Going back, Kelly has a really interesting perspective. So there's something that I remember having a conversation with a manager and a general manager, and the topic came up: are you going to be with the team every day, or are you going to come in occasionally? Now, there's pros and cons to both. But one of the cons of being there every day is you're now part of the system. And when you're part of the system, you're biased. You can't have a view where you're outside and being able to help. Now, when you come into different clubhouses from time to time, you're able to see the culture, see it in a way that they don't see it. You've been in a lot of clubhouses, you've seen a lot of teams. What are certain things, indicators that tell you it's a strong clubhouse, good culture versus the bad ones?
I feel like when you're in there every day, they're honest with you. I remember doing a literal piece on the manager, and nobody would tell me something nice about him. Because they're like, we don't want to be fake to you, Kelly. We don't like the guy. So I was like, oh my gosh, like when you spend so much time, I feel like you get pure honesty, which is cool, because then the conversations become real. I do think it's a little weird to be in the clubhouse in general. I've always felt like, look at the ground until spoken to, and it's an interesting element, the woman in the clubhouse, because I feel like I'm entering y'all's territory. Pre-game, it's always kind of awkward, like you're in and out, some people are playing cards, you're kind of waiting for people to talk, but no one's like asking anyone anything. It's almost like you're standing around, there's a lot of standing around. And then post-game, like, I just think, why are we in there sometimes? Look at the ground, people are changing, who's gonna talk? Sometimes the leaders don't talk actually, which I also found interesting. The rookies are willing to talk, but then senior leadership, the captains are not willing to talk. So there's so many interesting dynamics just being a woman in your element, which is so different from the NHL where post-game, they'll bring the guy out. So I never really enter y'all's space. It's your sacred space. So I think it's interesting. You kind of, with the Brotherhood concept, you do get to know the guys more because you're in their space, but I don't know if we really should be in your space that much.
But we always talk about like what winning looks like, the culture and the whole building. And to me, it's like that, those signs of maturity is what a winning culture is understanding, listen, Kelly don't care about my batting average. Like, she has a job to do. She's here to cover the team. And I have a due diligence to talk about the team, especially if I'm one of the guys that's making big money. And that's my responsibility of signing that contract. So if I do make that error at the end of the game or strike out at the end of the game, I know Kelly's got to ask me this question. And I know she's not trying to put me on blast in front of everybody. It's part of her job. And it's part of my job to answer that. And I think something that you and I have experienced, I know damn well I've experienced this, but when you try to go to a different place and you try and set that culture, those are really the things that you have to start with, is how you treat people in and out of the locker room. And, me and you know it as best. If you don't have everybody fully on board, understanding what everyone's there to do, then it's chaos with everyone moving, side to side. But that winning culture all looks the same.
I agree with that. When I set out half of 19, my first free agent year, ended up signing with the Braves. The first time I go in the clubhouse, and I was still, I forget how they were wording it. I had a couple rehab starts or something like that, and I threw in AA and AAA. But I was working out at the field, and I don't even know if that's legal or whatever. But I was like, I at least want to go in and meet some of the guys, just to kind of see how everybody was like gelling, or just how the environment was. So they put my locker next to Soroka during the day with a name tag, and then they took it off when I left. It's next to Soroka and Max Fried, and I got done throwing early before anybody came in. Max came in and was like, hey man, I go, hey Max, like, you got to keep doing what you're doing. Whatever you're doing, you just keep doing that thing in the morning till you go to bed at night. And he goes, you know my name? I was like, dude, you're like 7-0 at this point, like 9-1 or some absurd like that. And obviously he's done his thing since. But I was just like, are these guys just not even believing what they're doing? I was like, somebody's got to say something to like get these guys to believe. Soroka, same thing. He was kind of in the Rookie of the Year candidacy. Nobody made them believe, even with a Josh Donaldson or a Freddie Freeman. But those guys are also position players. So I feel like, and I'm not tooting my own horn. It was just like I was there in the moment with Soroka and then Max Fried to say, hey guys, like, what you're doing is legit. Like, this is how I started. This is how anybody starts. Doesn't matter if you're a pitcher, a hitter, a coach. You start in the same way with no name, and then you progressively build. And I think by the end of the year, it was a cohesive unit, and it was one of my most fun times. And I was only there for half a year, so it's like Kel and I talk about this a lot. When I see somebody, Max or Soroka now with Chicago, I'm like, I'm still rooting for these guys. These guys are salt of the earth dudes. And they didn't even know how good they were.
That's really cool.
Yeah, you're like, listen, this is how it starts out. You're gonna be young, no one knows you. Then you grow a beard, you get famous as fuck.
I was like, you guys are already way more advanced because you both were first rounders. You both have way more money. I had to just work my butt off for pretty much like 5 years, couple minor league seasons, and then it was like, hey, you're good, but then you're not good. You're good, and then you're not good.
Oh my God.
But even so, like from a media point with Pete, you're with Atlanta. Like, if anybody knows what winning feels like the last couple of years, it's got to be, that clubhouse, because if it was that different atmosphere like we're talking about, you having to go do your pregame and postgame thing in there, that would make you feel on edge walking in that clubhouse.
Yeah, they're a different unit over there though. And we spoke to Wash last night, and the thing that makes Atlanta so good is that everybody's accountable. It's more than just the friendship of family. They're there with a job to do, and they are accountable for it. Wash will not say, hey man, we're going to do this at this time. They just show up. All 4 infielders show up. They get their routines in. Outfielders do their work. It's just a well-oiled machine that has and it's going to be well-oiled for a long, long time. So it's a different beast. That you guys relied so much on the family aspect of the Royals growing up and being from the minor league teams, and there's more than, you said winning looks the same, but I think there's more than one way to win. Like you see with those guys that can somehow grasp momentum at the last minute of the season, sneak into the playoffs and win a World Series. So yes, you guys did it for 5-6 years and then made it to the big leagues, but there's guys that can do it over a short period of time too. So even if it's early on in the year and it's not gelling, there's the chance to turn it around with maybe a Dallas Keuchel coming in, making an impact, or a Hoz coming in and showing off that show beard. But yeah, it's
not as showy as this beard.
No kidding, right?
It's pretty short.
Right.
It's pretty short
But
now.
you know what that looks like, because in Tampa, same as Kelly's been around, but like Tampa, the feeling over there is you guys maximize everything out of everybody, right? Like what you got, exactly. So
It's amazing what they do over there.
what that looks like. Yeah. What's the secret?
No, I think the players play. The players, at the end of the day, it's all, a lot of people want to look at all these ancillary outside things, and Kevin Cash is, at the end of the day, he's like, it's the players. Players go out there and they do their things, but to your point, there's a lot of different ways how they from how they construct the roster to how they coach to player development, and it's really neat. And I think Glassman always says it's an environment where it lets you just be yourself, just do what you do. And I think somebody once said, I think it was Charlie Morton who said, he goes, playing in the big leagues is already hard enough. It's very difficult to perform at the highest level against the best players in the world. He goes, why would I make it harder on a rookie who's coming up by just making his life miserable in the clubhouse? Hey, there's some certain things you got to do, certain things you don't do. Hey, and be comfortable. And I thought that was a really interesting approach. I know not everyone sees it that way, but I just thought that was a refreshing approach. And I think that's the Rays way. Just be you, be comfortable, and go out there and have some fun.
Yeah, there's definitely that part of being you off the field, and Houston, those early days, I feel like, you guys had to establish that amongst yourselves, because it's like in Kansas City, it was a young group that the big league team didn't have much success before we got there. So, you don't have that veteran leadership right away when you get to the big league team. So having to go through the slumps and having to experience the failure of MLB season on your own and going through that as a group is tough. But we always say when you get to experience that with a group of guys, it's way easier than taking it on individually, that individual battle.
Yeah. I was just thinking about this on the way over here, is that a lot of the difference, I think, in the Astros development and your guys' case with the Royals was it was you, Moose, Givatella. It was like 4 or 5 guys with the Royals coming up, and they hadn't been good in a while. So like that was the publicity, was these guys, but that's all you heard. And they literally won. If I'm not correct, you guys won everywhere, or you won a lot, right?
Yeah, we won everywhere.
So that was like, I feel like the core movement in baseball was, hey, these guys played together, they won everywhere, they moved up together for the most part, and then they went to the big leagues and turned some stuff around. Houston was a different story. I feel like Altuve and I, we came up together. JD Martinez was drafted the same year as me. It was Kike Hernandez. I mean, we had a good draft class in 09 per se, and a couple guys before that year and then after that year. And a lot of those guys I did play with, but it didn't turn into winning. It wasn't winning on the field. It was more development first, and it's just like the winning came second, if that makes any sense. So it's like we get to the big leagues kind of all at the same time. I think Altuve and JD Martinez made the first impact on the team. And they made immediate impacts, but it still took a while because I think there wasn't any veteran leadership. All the Houston veteran leadership was then traded off for the guys to come in. And they didn't know their role. I come in, I didn't know my role. I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm in the big leagues. And that nucleus didn't gel for like a year or two. But sometimes you don't get that time period to then gel for a year or two. It's like you have a year, you're out as a young kid now. Whereas like this nucleus then just gelled everywhere. And then it was like, oh my gosh, boom, 15, win the World Series. Or back-to-back appearances, like that's unheard of.
All right.
But that's the gel, I feel like. That's the gel that just continually grew.
I think a lot of that was your guys' acceptance of, like when I remember being in meetings in spring training in 14, and they were talking about the shift. And me and Chad Qualls are kind of like, shifting? What are we doing? 2014, the shift wasn't a thing. And the Astros one of the first people to really bring it in. And Qualsy, I remember Qualsy standing up and saying, guys, they're doing this whether we like it or not. We may as well accept it. And then from that point, you obviously had all the success that you did, but that's that veteran presence that you need in a clubhouse to just go, guys, let's just suck it up.
Yeah, and then now, you look at the big leagues, everyone's shifting, right? So the game is obviously in a different spot than what it is. And something that we talked about the other day is from a pitching side, like I always have this question of, you see dudes in the offseason that are throwing bullpens at like 97, 98 miles an hour. And then you get in the game and it's maybe even less than that or right around there. And I'm like, dude, I remember I got to like 93, 94 in high school. So like from the left
Let's
side,
go, Oz.
not natural sync, but hey, it was maybe some VA or some pride. But like, so now in a new age of pitching, like I was a guy that like, I was not going to throw hard in the bullpen. When the game got going, I was going to get adrenaline and throw harder there. Like it's completely reversed now. And how has it come to that point? And that's something I've always wondered.
I look at these videos online now of guys that are just throwing a bullpen and they're at their max game speed, and I have no idea how they do it. I tell this story where legitimately every single last pitch that I threw in the big leagues, I would throw it as hard as I possibly could and turn around and look at the radar gun. And it never read anything more than 84, 85, maybe. But then that first hitter steps in and I can build it up and get adrenaline. And I don't know what that is. I don't know why just him stepping in the box allows my body to function better than it did for the 8 warm-up pitches that I had trying to throw 90 miles an hour. Can you help me out with that?
Yeah,
Can you please help me out?
Why not?
Tell me what.
No, but I mean, it's so true. I think you see it getting up for games. You get up for certain batters. You get up for certain moments. There was a time with the Red Sox, we had a guy who he got optioned to AAA at Pawtucket, and he comes up to me. He goes, Sua. He goes, I need help ramping up. He goes, I was in Boston in Fenway. The adrenaline was there in the bullpen, and now I'm in Pawtucket, and he usually needs to learn how to slow himself down. Now he's like, I need tools to get me up. Yeah. And so for him, it was from music to visualization. It's way different.
Look at Dallas. Like, oh, I can't wait to go right
and
now.
So
I gotta drop some fire on you.
Yeah. So how have you learned to do it?
I'm still learning how to do it.
And I asked you this because I know you're at Driveline now, so you're seeing the new side of it.
Because with injuries and how I haven't really fared well performance-wise, it's like I went to Driveline last year, especially because
First time.
Wow. And I saw it firsthand. It's like these guys come in and they're throwing indoors, and then I'm talking the batting cage can't be more than 9 feet high, so you feel like you're really squished in there. And I don't think Kelly's been there yet, but to get up for a bullpen at 9:30 in the morning in the off season when I am throwing or, extended out, it's like, do I need to drink 600 milligrams of caffeine? What is going on? Because these guys are coming in barely warming up and throwing, if their max game speed's 94, they're throwing like 93.7. They're throwing 92.9, and that's pretty close. Like if you're. But this is where I feel like watching this is where I feel like the game has changed, is because I've never thrown hard in my life. Pete's saying, hey, his last warm-up pitch, he's turning around, giving it all he's got. It turns around, it's 85. I've literally seen that. Like I'm warming up for a game, last pitch of the inning, used to be 8 pitches, boom. And I'm like, oh, I got it today. I just happened to peek back and not even at the scoreboard, and I see the 85, and I'm like, man, I'm throwing that slow? Like I need all the help I can get. And sure enough, the guy stands in the box, whoever it is, leading off Ian Kinsler, and I'm like, "Ooh, I better get going." Then it's boom, 89, and I'm like, "Okay, now we're okay." But I think it's because more of the guys before were students of the game, have had some really good knowledge. The guys now, literally all they've done is just go to a tryout, go to a perfect game, go to all these things
numbers
in the bullpens. And that's where they're all locked in for the bullpen. That is their game. So when they go to the actual game, it's just like, boom, here's
That's a
whatever
really
it
good
is.
point. What team has that sign in the bullpens?
Washington.
What's the sign
I
say?
don't care how hard you throw ball 4.
And that's just so fascinating. I don't care how hard you throw a ball forward. Going back to this. So her name is Kelly McGonigal, and she is an expert in stress. And she wrote a book called The Upside of Stress. A lot of times when you hear the word stress, you're like, oh, minimize stress, reduce stress, don't have any stress. And she argues that actually stress can take you to the next level. She ran all these experiments to show that actually stress could help you be stronger, be faster, be more focused. Instead of trying to reduce your stress, it'll take you to the next level. And so I think that's the case a lot of times when we are in these stressful situations. Instead of saying, oh, I need to calm down, I need to relax myself, what you need to say is, I'm excited. I'm excited for this moment, because the body doesn't know what's the difference between stress and excitement. It's the same same butterflies, same jitters, but when you frame it like I'm excited versus, oh, I'm stressed, I'm anxious, I need to slow it down, you can actually hone and harness and channel that stress to take you to that next level, to get you that extra velo on it. And obviously you want to be controlled, but that's a really interesting concept.
Is adrenaline considered a form of stress?
Adrenaline could be, I mean, the situation obviously is adrenaline is actually the mechanism that helps you perform, but it's a response to stress. It's not stress.
It can be debilitating at the same time too.
I'm sorry?
Adrenaline can kind of be debilitating. Is that the nerves that take over from the adrenaline that becomes debilitating?
Okay, so this is a great topic. So one of the things that we do with players all the time.
What language you guys
Okay.
speak?
So think about this. So let's do a little activity, everybody. Okay. So a little activity on a scale of 1 to 10. So we'll just say intensity scale. 10 being ready to run through a wall. 1 is ready to go to sleep. When you're hitting or when you're pitching, there's a certain window when you're at your best. Closers tend to be 9, 10. It's a window. 4 to 5, 6 to 7. What would be your window, your optimal window when you're at your best window of intensity when you're at your
I'd
best?
say 8.
You're about an 8.
I'd-
Just solid 8?
Solid 8.
Okay, 8.
It's weird because like I want my closer and my bullpen guy at 8 or 9.
I'm talking about you when you were a hitter.
Right. So I almost feel like as a hitter or a starting pitcher, it needs to be a little less because you want to be.
It doesn't have to be. It doesn't
I
have to be
mean,
anything.
yeah.
No, it doesn't have to be anything. It could be whatever you want
give
it
me a
to
number.
be.
7.
So it could be. So it could be 7.
7 is going to, like 10 is going to sleep.
10 is going through a wall. 10 is the
Oh,
highest.
10's going through a wall.
Yeah.
I mean, just for the sake of it, I would probably say a 5.
About 5. So what we like guys to do is find a window. It might be 4 to 5. It might be 6 to 7. It might be 8 to 9. And it's your window. Like I've seen elite athletes, their window is 3 to 4. And that's okay. Like there's no judgment. Whatever it is, it is. And then we say, what does that feel like? Oh, my body feels relaxed. I feel good, whatever. And then we ask the question, what does it feel when you're above that range? What does a 7, 8, 9, 10 feel like? Oh, I feel like this. And then what does it feel like below that? Oh, I feel like this. And then you give a guy a tool. Okay, when you're too high, you notice it. What tools do we need to bring you back down to a 7, 6, or whatever? And then when you're feeling low, getting ready, or a bullpen or whatever, what do you need to get you up higher? And so it really comes down to that awareness. And the question you always ask is, what number am I? What number am I? Okay, and what do I need to do to get me closer to where I need to be?
What's the correct answer?
There is no it's whatever works best for you. Shit. Yeah, whatever works best
See,
for
okay,
you.
this is, all right, I think this will help my argument and what we've been talking about for dinner over the last 4 nights. So, okay, so Glass Now was in here the other day. We were talking about, he's gorgeous, by the way. Oh my God. 6'7".
Cillian
guy's got
Murphy, right? The
beautiful
Cillian
hair.
Murphy lookalike? Okay. Peaky Blinders?
So, okay, so we're talking about the sticky stuff with pitching and how this era, has changed a lot of careers. It's changed the art of pitching, if we even call it an art of pitching
I was an
anymore.
artist, bitch. You know that.
So, for me, like kind of our last exercise, a guy like Dallas, a normal starting pitcher that's got some finesse to their game, they're going to have that steady heartbeat and not get too amped up and all that because there's an art of what they're doing. They're hitting spots. They know, okay, the back foot sinker to Haas is something that he can't hit, or I can go in with the cutter to this guy. He can execute all that type of stuff. I just feel like pitching has got to a point now where these dudes got a grip on something and they're just trying to rip one pitch the whole time. And there's really not like a finesse to it anymore. And I get the sunscreen rosin, that stuff. That is stuff that you guys, pitchers I play with have done that every level. But the spider tech stuff just got out of control.
There is nobody that's going to change my mind. And I love a lot of guys pitching or throwing. Controlled throwing is what Brent Strom calls it, controlled throwing. And we still have an argument. It's literally called pitching. Like you're hitting something, you're hitting a target. Did I use spider tack or I didn't even know what rosin was until after I was in the big leagues. So what are you throwing as a kid? Like you're just throwing the ball and your hand, maybe some sweat. Like I sweat a lot and I would always rub the ball with my sweat and that was literally it. And it's like, I have a hard time thinking about somebody putting some tack on them so they can get some more RPM and it's literally all they throw. And it doesn't compute with me. I'm like, you got drafted probably not using rosin or tack or whatever, and now you're just trying to enhance it. And there's nothing wrong with enhancing, but you would go play catch. There's guys who cannot play catch without some sticky. And I'm like, it's a ball. It's not like you're throwing a football, which is oversized of your hand. and maybe you need a little tack on that football, but it's literally a bit smaller than your hand, and you cannot throw it to 60 feet without having mentally saying, I'm only good enough with this tack.
Is that a like a Rapsodo, TrackMan? They're always looking to make numbers, whether it's playing catch or whether they're looking for that feel that they had in their bullpen when they knew it was spinning at 2200 or 2500 or 2800. So they're trying to get back to that, and they can't feel that. They don't have the same feel when they're playing catch. I was never a guy that used it for playing catch, but the reason why I started using sticky stuff was because the balls changed. So I had a certain way where it was literally just rosin and sweat for the longest time. And then I came back after a couple of injuries, and I'm in Arizona, and the ball's not doing anything. And even when I got to AAA, the ball's still not doing anything. But the surface of the ball had changed, and it felt like the ball had changed completely. So the guys were like, we'll try this. And then that motivated me to go, okay, well, little sunscreen, little rosin gets me back to the guy that I was. But I completely agree with you that we've lost sight of what it is to be a pitcher a lot of the time, especially bullpen guys. They just come in here and just rip one pitch, the slider, 80% of the time, and it's just like, is that fun? Is that fun to watch a guy go through in a bat where he's just going, just one pitch every single time?
I've seen guys freak out now with the TrackMan being down. If you're on a team and your TrackMan is down for the day, it's complete madness. And I'm like, guys, you still have to throw to the catcher. Like, you still got to command the ball this way. So I kind of want to do an experiment with a team, say, hey, we don't have any rosin, no sunscreen today, and see how many guys can actually go play catch. Because look, Pete was a professional. He could go play catch with just a ball, no tack. But yeah, you want to enhance a little bit and feel like you're doing some stuff in Arizona. Seattle's a big one, dry. LA, it's dry. I mean, there's some dry spots where you need a little bit of something.
Yeah, for sure.
But you can't tell me Pete is not comfortable going out or Haas is going out and just playing catch with the ball and saying, like, I can't do this. I can't do this without something. This doesn't make any sense.
Thank you. All right, because it's been the hitter versus the pitcher the whole time, but you're a different perspective of a pitcher because of how your game was, and there was an art and a finesse to it.
Maybe when Haas took home and tied the game up in New York, maybe Duda needed a little bit of, maybe Duda needed a little bit.
He went there.
That was bad. That was bad.
That game.
He went there. You said it.
He was hosed, if that was the term.
So hosed.
It was a great decision. I don't know what you guys are talking
When you're up 3-1, it's a great decision for sure.
You gotta have a little bit of luck too. A little bit of luck involved in anything you do. That was a great call.
So all this baseball we're talking about, Kelly, you've seen baseball from being on a team aspect, being with Tampa Bay, being a significant other now, watching as a fan. How
I have loved the game for so long. I can't imagine my world being anything else. Grew up with the Florida Marlins at the time. Loved that starting staff, the whole Burnett, Beckett, Penny thing they had going on over there. And it got to be so much in my household. My parents weren't baseball fans. So they got me a little 13-inch TV for my bedroom with a little VCR. So I'd put the VHS in, record the games, watch the games, rewatch the games, learn how to score the games. So my journey's been a little bit different just because I've been so drawn to the game as a spectator. I played softball, terrible, not good, played for 10 years.
Stuck out.
Poor Dallas. Married the most
I didn't know it was 10
unathletic
years. That's pretty
genes.
good, though. I mean, that's dedication.
That's dedication. Riding the bench for 10 years.
That's full pension, man.
But they say, I think I heard Nolan Ryan's wife on his documentary say, when you marry a baseball player, you marry the game for the highs and lows, right? And it honestly feels like a fun roller coaster, right? I mean, he's made me ride Titan at Six Flags, front row.
Oh, yeah. Over Texas. Oh, yeah.
And I would equate the game to a nice little roller coaster.
And it's got to be so cool too. Like, so Pete, you got 3 little girls. You know, we talk about the families and extended families. There's probably so many players that you've covered that you're so close with.
Oh my gosh.
Their daughters, their sisters,
It's so fun.
whoever it is. And I'm sure they all look up to you like, man, I want to do what Kelly's doing one day.
Thank you for that.
Oh,
Thank you.
I know
True.
that's got to hit home for you.
Yeah, it's important. I mean, the fact that I didn't have no idea you were such a baseball fan. A lot of the time, people in your position, they would have studied the craft of reporting, or I don't even know if you obviously have to go to school for that. So that's what they end up doing because of what they've studied. But for you, it was totally different. You had the love of baseball first and fell into that role. That must have been huge for you too.
And it was really just, at the time, I finished college finally in 2010. Every team did not have a female presence. It was just Erin Andrews. You know, she started with the Tampa Bay Lightning, which I watched. And she kind of set the tone to every team having a female on the broadcast. And it started to get my mind because I was really into news, loved sports. But I thought I was going to be a news anchor. I love Joan London. I love Good Morning America. That was the goal my whole life since little, kindergarten. I want to be a news anchor. I want to be a news anchor. But my friends were like, Kelly, all you watch is SportsCenter. You have to take this path. And in school, they made us choose one or the other. And it was just the perfect fit at the right time. Because if I was 10 years older, maybe it wouldn't have been the best fit. There weren't that many women in sports. You had the Susie Colberts, but then who did you have? So Erin really kind of paved the way for.
How strong is that network now? Because like I said, you and Case, Case wasn't so much in sports. You did soccer a couple years, but that connection you guys all have that strong network of reaching out and, hey, you posted a picture of your reporting there, and Kelly's the first one to be in the comments like, hey, you look great, girl. Like, hey, Kelly's boosting me up all the time. She's like, I see you. I'm like, hey, I appreciate that, Kelly. Oh, hey, there's another one with Kelly. Girl. Yes. But
I'm such a girl's girl.
Yeah.
I come from girls. I love girls.
I tell Case all the time, I'm like, I don't have a friend good enough because I need someone like Kelly.
I'll gas you up, Oz. I got you.
We got to start gassing him up.
Right? Do you think he really needs gassing up? I mean, look at him.
Let's go.
I already followed Diggin Deep.
And Moonball Media.
Let's go. Moonball Media.
Yes.
Genius name, by the way.
Yes.
Great fit.
We need it all. So Sue, real quick, sorry. Who are some of those, people in that network that you've become closest to over the years? I know Lauren is real tight with you, but
Lauren Shahadi.
who are some other?
Definitely my ride or die. She's been at MLB Network, I would think maybe 12 years now.
Feels like forever.
Yeah. I mean, I moved to New Jersey not knowing a single soul. That's where the network was. Moved from Florida, was really comfortable there. And to leave my comfort zone of, oh my gosh, I'm in my home state. Like, life is amazing. Like, I love it here. To, oh my gosh, I'm moving to New Jersey. I've never even been to New Jersey before. Never mind, knew anybody. And she just swept me up, took me under her wing, taught me everything. I was a nervous wreck on air for such a long time. But she exudes just so much grace and warmth and funniness. And I thought, oh man, like, this isn't really that serious. We could have fun with this. Life is fun. Baseball is fun. I could laugh. I could make jokes on the air. And honestly, Haz, every time I see you, I think about the moment.
Oh, yeah. She's like, Moose, it was so great talking to him. I'm like, Kelly, I'm Haz.
No. That is not what happened. Okay, no, here's what happened.
My God,
no, that's not what happened. Okay, here's what happened. We're going to a break, and I wasn't sure if we were getting Moose or you on our show. So it was kind of like a last minute decision. I thought they were leaning towards Moose because it really is who's ready at the time, who can go out to ballpark cam. And I was like, coming up next, Royals third baseman. And I look at the camera, I saw you. I was like, oh shit, he's gonna think I think he's a third baseman.
Oh no, you should have told that story at my wedding, right?
I know. I wanted to die.
Oh man, that was.
It makes life fun.
We were talking before, because a lot of times when you make it to the top of your craft or the world gets to see you, you get these messages or these emails from people, how do I be like you? What was that journey like? And we were talking before this, when someone reaches out to you and they say, hey, I want to be in your shoes someday, how do I do it? What do you tell them?
It's so funny. I see so many similarities rising in broadcasting to rising through the ranks of the minor leagues, because there are so many dues to pay. You start your career making $0.00 in the middle of nowhere. I know Lauren Shahadi made 12 grand in North Dakota. I started out very similarly in Charlotte, North Carolina. And if you take these other jobs and think that I'm gonna eventually get into broadcasting, but I'll do marketing first, I'll do PR, you're not gonna get in. you have to literally start from wherever you can get someone to believe in you, because you have to have experience to get experience, but then no one wants to take a chance on you. So you really do have to start from nothing and work your way up. I mean, I told you off camera, one of my first jobs, I was living with a couple off Craigslist, $500 in their basement on an air mattress, and there were mice in the walls. And it made me want to work harder to get out, to move up the ranks. Then I got the raise job, so life got a little better. I was living at a senior living facility. Swear to God.
It's incredible.
Kelly,
It's incredible.
Kelly, I'm so worried about you right now.
There's other options, right?
Options, right?
Cheap rent.
It was great. Oh my gosh, my friends there were great. But you really do have to pay your dues. Don't take another job because you think you can start at a higher salary. You'll get there. You'll get there.
And that's what I love about this, all the guests who we have who've went through the ranks to get to where they are. One of my favorite phrases, people will praise in public what you practice in private. And they have no idea the journey it takes to get there. And then I think you're the one who said it. You're just like, you don't realize, you say you want something, but then you realize what it takes. And then sometimes people are like, oh, I'm not willing to do that. They just want the lifestyle, the top, but they don't want to work to it. I just think that's just so fascinating.
So I'll lead you into this one because this guy hates tooting his own horn, but you have a daughter that's pretty successful and at a young age, and similar situation like Kelly's just saying, like she made a full promise and lifestyle change that this is something I want to do. So I think you need to tell that story about the first audition to where she is now.
Yeah, so we have 3 kids. We love them all. And so 17, 16, 15. And when my youngest,
This one especially.
Yeah, that's a whole other story. They're all awesome. But when she was 8 years old, she was watching Disney Channel and she made a decision right there in that moment. She goes, I'm gonna be an actor. And I remember pausing TV and saying, what? She's like, I'm gonna be an actor. And we're like, okay, you know how mommy and daddy are. If you want to do it, we're gonna commit to it. She's like, okay. Get her an acting coach. Coach works with her for a year. Year's over, coach comes to us and she goes, all right, your daughter's ready for an agent. I'm like, she is not ready for an agent. She is exactly the same as she was a year ago. And my wife's like, let's go get her an agent. We go to Los Angeles, we audition for an agency, no on the spot. I'm walking her back to the car. She's crying. She's 9 years old at the moment. At the time, I'm like, all right, sweetheart, do you want to go back to playing sports and get back to, and she goes, no, I need to work harder. She's 9. I need I need a better coach. I'm like, what does a better coach even mean? And so I'm like, okay, we get her a better coach. A year later, coach comes up to us. She needs an agent. I'm like, she does not need an agent. She's only just been doing this. My wife's like, she needs an agent. We go back to LA and they sign her. And so then her agent goes, well, this is like getting into the minor leagues. Doesn't guarantee you're gonna get to the big leagues. We moved to LA for 3 months. She auditions almost every day for the summer. We go back to Florida with her tails between our legs saying, oh, she didn't get any, she had hundreds of auditions, didn't get that shot. Until one day she gets a phone call from Dwayne Johnson and his group. And he says that, hey, I want you to play my daughter in my next movie. So she played his daughter in Hobbs and Shaw. And then now she has her own TV show on the Disney Channel. And she has her own show. And so now she's taken off. She's just doing her thing. But when people say, oh, wow, how'd you get into it? It's like, she literally will just stay in her room and practice her emotions. She can cry on the spot. She works on things. And so it's really fascinating. It's like when you really want something, you're just going to go after it.
Is that trainable? Is that coachable? Is that inner drive?
I always wonder this.
To just push or not get too down about a no? Is that something you can learn?
I think a lot of it is innate, to be honest. It's kind of like those people who there are people who are fast, and then there are people you can train to be fast, but you'll never be as fast as the people who are born fast. I think just one of those things, we never trained her, we never taught her, she just had this tenacity part of her DNA. And so yeah, I'd like to say, yeah, we trained it, but no, we didn't. We just, it's amazing how she's kind of developed that way. It was crazy.
Look at us all old talking about our careers.
Way back when.
Well, we got nothing but love for the Keuchel family, like we said.
So
and
nice, Halsey.
Silverleaf, anytime I pull up, I put it on their tab, baby.
That's right.
Kid Cudi, that's my guy.